You're listening to Sin Fronteras Western New York at 1. Good afternoon, I'm Samantha Martinez.
And I'm Michelle Agosto.
Today we'll talk to attorney Les Greenbaum. Have questions on how to start a business? Let's chat. Call 716-837-1112.
And Sin Fronteras Western New York has the latest on what to do this weekend.
And the Hispanic Heritage Council of Western New York and community leaders teamed up to bring much-needed aid to hurricane-ravaged Puerto Rico. Sin Fronteras Western New York is brought to you by our sponsor, Goya Foods. Si es Goya, tiene que ser bueno.
Tito, no es correcto que hagas después de tomar tu néctar Goya. Marita, niña, Benito.
Los néctares Goya son ricos, naturales y nutritivos, con más frutas que los demás. Tamarindo, pera, mango y muchos más. Saboréalos y un de tu boca surgirá. Néctares Goya, más fruta, más sabor.
Goya tiene que ser bueno.
The time is 1:04. 2 weeks after Hurricane Maria destroyed Puerto Rico's communication towers, killed its electrical grid, and knocked out the island's running water supply, medical officials say the island's health system is now on life support. Complications related to the primitive conditions and difficult transportation issues has led to even more deaths. The island's official death toll from the storm now stands at 34. The Hispanic Heritage Council of Western New York teamed up with local leaders to bring much-needed aid to the island. A car show fundraiser held this past Sunday brought in huge numbers from the community. Lead organizers Freddy Pagan and Erica Leon collected $2,700, more than 10,000 gallons of water, and about 1 ton of food and supplies. Lucy Candelario, the executive director of the Bell Center, says the center has collected more than 5,000 pounds of food and $23,000. Tropical storm Nate is headed to Mexico after killing 20 people in Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Honduras. The storm will make another landfall on Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula before hitting the open ocean again. Nate is then expected to get stronger, reaching Category 1 hurricane force winds. The storm is predicted to hit late Saturday or early Sunday, somewhere along the Gulf Coast, possibly New Orleans, where the drainage pumping system isn't working at full capacity. Chilling new clues suggest the man behind the deadliest mass shooting in modern U.S. history planned to inflict even more carnage. Stephen Paddock didn't just have 23 weapons in his Mandalay Bay hotel suite, which he then turned into a sniper's nest to kill 58 Las Vegas concertgoers. He also had more than 50 pounds of explosives and 1,600 rounds of ammunition in his car. Investigators now believe Paddock intended to survive the massacre. However, what motivated Paddock to kill dozens of strangers and where he planned to strike next still remains a mystery. Coming up next, we'll talk to attorney Les Greenbaum. Have questions on how to start your first business? Let's chat. Call 716-837-1112.
And we are back now with attorney at law, Les Greenbaum, good friend of mine, and I'm so thrilled that he's here. He works for Gross Schumann PC, Attorneys at Law, and we're just so pleased that he's here to talk about how to start a new business. There are a lot of Latinos in our community, and just in general, our community members here in Buffalo who are curious about starting a new business. Sounds tougher than maybe it is, or maybe it is that difficult, and maybe they just need a kind of a blueprint to how to get there. So we're really glad that you're here to share that.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here, Michelle. And I think that before starting a business, one thing to do is to think about assembling a team. It's good to have an attorney, good to have an accountant, someone who can help you keep the books straight and help you with your tax returns, and if you have employees, to make sure that you're handling your withholdings correctly and paying for unemployment insurance and workers' compensation and things of that nature. And it's also good to have a good insurance agent who can review what your business may be doing, where the potential liabilities may be, and what types of insurance coverages you may need. So I think, that would probably be step one, making sure that you have the right team in place. And then you need to think about a name for your business. What are you going to call it? And I would suggest that you stay away from something that is too generic or descriptive. I wouldn't choose West Side Auto Parts or Broadway Groceries because it's not distinctive enough. What you're hoping for is that your business will grow, and that part of the growth of your business and the value of your business may be in its name. So good names for businesses would, in a sense of a trademark or a service mark, would be something that would be considered fanciful, a word that is made up and means nothing, like Kodak or Xerox. The next best category of names would be things that we would classify as arbitrary. So, for instance, Monster for an energy drink, or Monster for an employment service. So you want to try and pick something or create a mashup, or something that may be made up of the initials of your children, to make it distinctive, so that over time that would be an asset of your business that someone would need to acquire. The next thing is, once you've thought about a name that you would like to have for your business, nowadays you need to see if the .com is available. Go to a place like GoDaddy and put the name in and see if it's available, or if something like it may be available that you can acquire, because you want that exclusivity, particularly on the net. You don't want to pick a name that is so close to someone else's that it's likely to cause confusion, or that may cause them to send you a cease and desist letter. Stop confusing people with your business name.
Is it smart to maybe look at what's possibly out there already first before you decide on a name for your business? So if you come up with this witty name, whatever that name is, like Sin Fronteras Western New York, right?
Pretty witty, I
Right,
would
it's
say.
pretty good, right? And you decide to call your business that, and then shouldn't you probably look online and hope that doesn't exist as a .com or .org or whatever it is?
Absolutely. And because, you again don't want to be accused of unfair competition or confusing the marketplace. Now, that's one reason why, for instance, before we file trademark applications or service mark applications for our clients, we then generally perform a comprehensive search. This is a costly process before we file a federal trademark application, but you don't want to file to get a trademark and have someone then send you a letter saying, hey buddy, you need to pick another name. And particularly if you've already printed your literature or put a sign on your building or your restaurant. And when we think of trademarks, generally trademarks are for products like Goya or Coca-Cola. And then service marks are for service businesses. Think of something like Federal Express or Key Bank. Those would be service marks. So that would be a first consideration. And you can search online. It's easy enough to Google a name. But you don't want to, call your soft drink Coca-Cola, Kokakola. You want to avoid sound-alikes as well as, doing something that's exactly the same, because, it's not exactitude that would necessarily create confusion, particularly with sound-alikes where so much advertising is on the radio.
Right.
I just want to add, or if you could clarify for me. So let's say the person has incorporated let's say they have an LLC for this witty, awesome name. Then they also have an amazing logo, right? Now the logo, it's a real strong branding for this company. Do they have to separately now trademark this so the logo doesn't get copied? Is that two separate focuses on here?
It is. Think of Nike and the swoosh.
Right.
They've protected Nike as a trademark in standard characters. They've protected Nike in various stylized scripts as their trademark, and they've protected the swoosh.
Right. Because you connect Nike without the words and just the swoosh.
That's right. I mean, you see that on a lot of bags and a lot of clothing and golf balls. I don't know if you see them on golf balls, but I used to, because they've gone out of the golf club and golf business now. But it is a separate unit. For instance, when you think of Coca-Cola, they have trademarked Coca-Cola in standard characters. They've trademarked Coca-Cola in that very stylized script that we now see around Christmas time.
True.
And they've trademarked Coke. So, and Diet Coke and Cherry Coke and Coke Zero.
Right.
So every variation, companies that have the resources will protect. I mean, Chevrolet changes their little medallion, every couple of years, and every time they make a slight variation that you or I might not notice, they'll go in and trademark the new variation. But for most people who are starting a business, going through the trademarking process, particularly at the federal level, can be quite costly. There would be a search, as we discussed, and the search not only looks at the internet and what's been filed at the trademark office at the federal level, but each of the 50 states has their own trademark and service mark registrations. They have business names, they have corporations, so those searches are quite comprehensive, particularly if you're thinking of doing business that may cross the state line. There's a less expensive New York State trademark and service mark registration process, which is a lot simpler and a lot faster and a lot cheaper, and that will protect you in the state of New York if that's where you focus your business. Most people that are starting a business will just start as a sole proprietorship, and if they're going to give their business a name, they'll get an assumed name, or what's sometimes referred to as a DBA. And that's a very simple process. They can get a form at Office Depot and file it in the Erie County Clerk's office or the Niagara County Clerk's office. Your signal goes to Niagara County. And
It's FM, so.
and so you can just file the DBA at the local level. If you have a partner and you're doing business as partners, partners can also file an assumed name or DBA certificate at the local clerk's office. One of the issues, though, about doing business as partners is that each partner's personal assets are potentially liable for any debts of the partnership, which is one reason why folks who are expanding beyond sole proprietorships, or even someone who may want to do business as an individual and is looking for some protection against liabilities arising out of their operation of the business, may choose to incorporate, or they may choose to form a limited liability company. So that has a way of shielding some personal assets from claims that might be made against the business.
So if you have any business questions at all, please feel free to call 837-1112. Les, I want to bring it down a little bit because we've talked about these larger concepts. And, for the layman who is just thinking about starting, like me, I have no background knowledge about anything. But if I thought I wanted to start a business, I think your advice about having a team to accentuate those skills. So bookkeeper, someone who's good at accounting, someone who's good with the creativity, someone who's good with communications, starting a team. So once you do that, and once you actually find your name, and actually the .com is awesome, and you've got that pegged, the next step would actually be to file paperwork, or where's that next step to say I'm officially starting a business?
Well, if you've chosen a name and you're doing business under that name as an individual or a partnership, filing with the clerk's office is sufficient, but it is required because if you're going to do business as Sin Fronteras, someone should be able to know, well, who is Sin Fronteras? Who's doing business as Sin Fronteras? And what address can I write to them? Or what address would I use if I needed to sue them? So that's the reason why you file at the clerk's office.
Okay.
And which is why people usually choose to file as an LLC as opposed to being a sole proprietor, because it separates you, correct, from what you own.
It can be very helpful in terms of insulating your personal assets from claims that might be made against your business. And an LLC can be formed by a single individual, a sole member LLC. That type of LLC could even use an individual's own social security number. Now, I wouldn't recommend that. I think if you're going to start a business, even as a sole proprietorship, it's also a relatively simple process to get what's known as an employer identification number, or EIN, from the IRS. That way, if you're doing business with someone and because of the volume of business, they need to have a social security number or an employer identification number with regard to the payments that they are making to you, you don't have to give them your personal social security number. You can just give them the employer identification number of your business. And in addition, to speak to Michelle's question, to form an LLC, there are some filing requirements similar to corporate filing requirements. If you incorporate in the state of New York, there are filings that need to be made with the state, in the Secretary of State's office. And in addition, if you're forming an LLC, there are some publication requirements that need to be made before you're fully established and lawfully able to conduct business. And corporations and LLCs can also do business under assumed names. They can file a DBA.
You can have multiple names, correct?
They can have trademarks. I mean, not too many people have heard of Doctors Associates, Inc., which is a fairly substantial Connecticut corporation. But if you mention Subway, sandwich shop, everyone knows who you're talking about.
Yes.
Very nice, which actually explains why a lawyer is really important when you actually start this venture into business.
It is good to have a team in place to bounce questions off and talk with your accountant, because depending on where you're getting your funds, if you're going to have investors, if you're going to have lenders, if you're going to have different people having input on your management, you may want to think about having a certain type of corporate entity as opposed to a limited liability company. And your lawyer and accountant can help you select the proper entity for how you plan to structure your business now and in the future.
So let's say you found your LLC, you have your EIN number, you're ready to roll, you're ready to go find your first client. At what point is it a good idea to get a bank account, a business bank account? Because maybe you don't have funds rolling in right away. When would it be smart to do so, or maybe legally you have no choice? Can you elaborate on that, please?
Well, you always have a choice in terms of how you want to structure your finances. It generally makes sense to get your account set up so that it is a business account, and so that you're being able to classify certain business expenses as being attributable to the business as opposed to some other activities, because it's going to be a factor in when it comes time to file your taxes. If you're going to have expenses, and when you're starting a new business, going through the incorporation process, renting a place that you're going to conduct your business, having a telephone number, setting up a website, you're going to have expenses. So even before you need to establish a bank account, you probably have to make sure that you have a realistic budget in mind to cover those expenses. And talking with your accountant, talking with your lawyer, talking with your insurance agent may give you a good idea of how much money am I going to need to get this business started, and do I have enough myself, or do I need to borrow the money? And if I have to borrow it, what do I need to put together in terms of a business plan to show to a lender to support my application for the monies that I need? Or if you're just going to your brother-in-law, he's probably going to at least want to know, what your plans are for the business and when you're likely to pay him back, and if you're going to sign some sort of a promissory note to promise that you'll be paying him back.
Would he be an investor? I mean, would that be legally an investor? Your brother-in-law just giving me some money? I mean, what's the difference?
That is, he is an investor. It wouldn't necessarily be something that you need to register with the Securities and Exchange Commission. It's not like you're selling stocks to the public. But one of the places where a lot of small businesses run into difficulties right at the outset is in finding the necessary capital to keep operating until some of the money's coming in. Having a customer and sending a bill doesn't necessarily translate immediately into funds coming in. Some people take 30, 60, 90 days to pay their bills or longer. So you need to make sure that you anticipate that there may not be a cash flow coming in that would necessarily cover the expenses that you're incurring, particularly at the outset.
So with that said, when you file your taxes at the end of the year, let's say you really didn't make much at all, maybe $1,000 in profit. What does that look like now? You have an LLC, and this person is going to file taxes. How does that look like if they didn't make much profit that year?
Well, in a limited liability company, or LLC, or a corporation is, in the law's eyes, a different person. So it has its own tax return, which it needs to be filed. And if it has had some earnings, it pays tax on its income. Certain types of corporations can be structured so that the income to the corporation may be attributable to the individual shareholders, and limited liability company income can at times be treated more like a partnership, and there are some tax advantages to doing that. That's why it's always good to consult with your accountant or tax preparer before you decide on what form of business may be the right form for you.
Les, I have a question that may kind of put us to a different road, I guess. Protecting intellectual property. So you don't have the capital yet to build a business, or you don't have the resources, or whatever it is, but you have this idea. How do you protect that? Like, how do you protect that so other people don't steal your idea and make it into whatever, wonderful project it could be?
Well, it depends on, whether the idea is an invention, a new mechanical device, or a new chemical, or a new gene, because that may be subject to patent protection.
I see.
And applying for and obtaining a patent is, somewhat lengthy and expensive process. It can be, and usually involves consulting with a patent lawyer. If what you have is something like a story, or a poem, or a musical composition, or a work of art, that's more likely to be protected by copyright. And if you're trying to protect the name of the business, or the name of a product, or the name of a business that you intend to start, or the name of a product that you intend to distribute, you can think about getting a trademark or a service mark.
Oh, thank you. Les, thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you so much.
We really appreciate it.
It was a wonderful, informative time with you. Thank you so much.
Yes, so this was Les Greenbaum from Gross Schumann PC. If you have any questions for him, you can reach him through email at artslaw@aol.com. Thanks, Les.
My pleasure.
When we come back, a look at what's happening this week in our area. And now a word from our sponsor.
Tiene que ser bueno.
So lots of great stuff happening in the community coming up. Transformations, a wearable art runway show and competition will happen Saturday night, October 7th at the NAC, Niagara Arts Cultural Center. and you'll see models walking the runway. So if you're interested in fashion and design and want to see our local artists dress up our models, please come by. Tickets are $20 for non-members, $15 for members of the NAC. And there will be a student show there too, so you want to go check it out. It should be a lot of fun. I will be judging that, so if you want to come and say hi to me, I'll be there. And it's actually located 1201 Pine Street in Niagara Falls, New York. And for more information, you want to go to www.nacc.org. And next Thursday, it will be Samantha's turn to show up at the Hispanic Heritage Celebration keynote address at Buffalo State College. She'll speak on the story behind the story, a Latina in broadcast journalism. And the program is scheduled from 12:15 to 1:30 in the Bulger West building of Buffalo State College. So that should be great. Congratulations, Samantha.
Thank you.
And then next Friday, a really important fundraiser that the Hispanic Heritage Council does. It's Salsa for a Cure. It raises money for Roswell Park Cancer Institute. Please come by. It's a great time to dance, to enjoy each other's company at the Augustin Pucho Olivencia Community Center at 261 Swan Street. Tickets are $25 in advance, $30 at the door, and all the proceeds go right to Roswell Park. And next Saturday, there'll be a dinner for the Hispanic Women's League, a scholarship dinner, and I'll be emceeing that event. It's located at Aqua, 2192 Niagara Street, and we want to honor all our young ladies who win their scholarships and awards. So if you want information on that, you want to go to HispanicWomen'sLeague.org.
Thanks for joining us for Sin Fronteras Western New York every Friday at 1. Remember, you can always catch Sin Fronteras Western New York online and on our Facebook page whenever you want, all the time, 24/7.
And now for one of my favorite songs, Cheche Cole, Macosa by Antibalas. And we want to say goodbye. Thank you, everybody.
Hasta la próxima. Ciao.
Adios.
Di maju madea. Tu be adima mayeyo. Di maju madea.
Yeah, well,
Tu be adima mayeyo.
I'll come back.
Di maju madea.
Seriously.